Amidst inflation fears as well as the new virus variant, the markets are starting to go nuts, with stock prices as well as crypto prices dropping. So what do? Well, if you're a long-term hodler like myself, this is potentially a time to go discount shopping. And by the way, I did just purchase some Ethereum and Bitcoin today, although I do practice dollar cost averaging with them. But in this video, I'm also going to share with you some of the other potential plays and investments to look into given the current circumstances with, again, inflation as well as the new virus variant. Again, this is not financial advice, but definitely some things that are on my watch list I just want to share with you guys. And in addition to that, these picks will also involve some of the upcoming trends that I think will do very well moving into the future, such as the recent metaverse trend, which I believe is due for a pullback.
It's showtime!
Now, the very first thing I want to quickly cover, and this is sort of because I've taken this somewhat new direction with my channel, covering more current trends and current events in regards to investment and things like making money opportunities. So the first thing I want to talk about is cryptocurrencies, but specifically ones that are related to the metaverse. And firstly, for transparency, I don't actually own any of these cryptocurrencies just yet, but I'm actually waiting for a pullback to potentially get in on them with a very, very small position relative to all of my other investments, which includes mostly stocks and index funds, as well as a little bit of crypto. So again, if I do get into any of these metaverse related coins, they would actually just be a small percentage of my total crypto portfolio, which in and of itself is actually a small percentage of my entire investment portfolio, just for context. Now, as you may or may not know, the metaverse has been really, really hot lately, and in particular, there is one specific one called the Sandbox, which is sort of a virtual reality game. I wouldn't quite call it a metaverse, but it actually has the ability for users or players to buy not only NFTs, such as items, as well as avatars and different types of assets within the game, but also buy land within the game. And in addition to that, there's also a token called the Sand token, which I'm actually closely watching right now, but I'm definitely not buying just yet. And I believe it'll have a huge pullback because recently the game actually entered into its alpha phase, which you can actually play right now. You can actually just go to their website, and you can just try out their alpha for free. There's another version where you can buy a alpha pass, or landowners within the Sandbox can actually get access or get involved in this kind of lottery system to potentially get into their alpha, specific type of alpha with the alpha pass, where you can actually do quests and earn NFTs and things like that. So basically, those people will actually have special quest rewards, the ones with the pass, whereas people without the pass can still try out the game, but not be able to earn any of those rewards. And so all of this actually resulted in a bunch of people trying to buy land within the Sandbox in order to gain access to that lottery to be able to play the special alpha, as well as the increase in price of the Sand token currency used to buy that land, right? And so this is a large reason why the Sandbox coin is so hyped up right now, and that's on top of the general metaverse hype, which has sort of seeped into metaverse related investments, be it crypto or stocks, right? So I believe once the hype dies down, not only when the alpha ends and we sort of enter into this sort of cooling off period, but also when the metaverse trend dies down, that's when I'll really be looking into potentially getting into some of these coins, including the Sandbox token. And in addition to the Sand token, another few tokens or metaverse related tokens that I'm watching are the Axie Infinity token, which I'm very unlikely to be getting into because the hype is largely already there, as in people have already very much gotten into it, but it's definitely one that I'm watching closely as well. And by the way, Axie Infinity is one of the first really popular NFT slash metaverse related games that have sort of blown up and actually has a pay to earn system already built in that people have already been able to make quite a bit of money from it, at least those people who got in quite early. And some other tokens include the Decentraland token, also called the Mana token, which is used to do trades and buy or sell things within the Decentraland ecosystem, which is yet another virtual reality game slash metaverse, very similar to the Sandbox. But the reason that I prefer the Sandbox system or platform and game and token over Decentraland is that Decentraland is a bit older, although they could still update it and things like that. But I think the Sandbox is just a lot more well made. Decentraland, you can actually try out the game as well. Just go to the website, you can actually play the game for free. But I think it's just not as well made as the Sandbox, and in addition to that, it doesn't have as much intercompatibility, I suppose, with different platforms. For example, with Sandbox, you can actually import Minecraft characters, which is obviously a really popular game, right? And the art style being voxel art, and there's being a free creator software for artists to be able to build stuff with, among other things like a game creator. These are all for free, and I've made videos on those as well that you can check out. But I think the Sandbox is just a lot better of a platform currently than Decentraland, making me prioritize the Sand token more. And lastly, there's one more token that I'm watching even more closely, and this potentially even has more of an investment potential from my part because it's sort of under the radar, and I really like, you know, buying more under the radar stuff because, again, the less mainstream hype there is to it, obviously you have to also believe in it and think it, you know, it will do well, right? But this is called the Engine token, which is a system. The system called the Engine platform actually enables game creators specifically, and, you know, like game production companies, to integrate NFT technology into their games, right? And the Engine token is their native token. And this is more compared to the Sandbox, which has obviously a lot of mainstream attention and hype, as well as like Axie Infinity. All this stuff has tons of mainstream attention and thus money, you know, from retail investors, right? The Engine token is much more sort of subtle, or not as, you know, really hyped up, and so that's why I think it has a lot more potential when it does enter more into the mainstream. And it already has a lot of promising projects and companies are already using the platform, which is why I think when it actually gets into the mainstream spotlight, it'll blow up because it does have a really great foundation. And now, moving on to stocks, and this is actually something I'm very passionate about.
I love gold!
And I've been covering on my second channel, but I've sort of decided to experiment with covering that on this channel as well, seeing as a somewhat new direction that I've been taking. So let me know what you think down below if you enjoy this type of content, or if you have different types of suggestions. And first, sort of continuing from the previous topic, the metaverse, I'm going to first talk about some of the stocks within that space that I've either already been invested in or are looking to buy more of. And the first of these stocks is Nvidia, which I already own many shares of, so I'm actually not looking to add more right now because it's actually run up in terms of the stock price quite a lot after the metaverse hype, as well as its most recent earnings call. And the reason Nvidia has been so hot lately, and also why it's one of the largest holdings in my portfolio, is that not only does it make graphics cards, which it's more traditionally well known for, but it also is very heavily involved in other ventures like data centers and upcoming trends like self-driving, as well as the metaverse, which they themselves call their own metaverse, the Omniverse, which actually has applications for a ton of different industries, being able to replicate real life situations, for example, within their platform, which has been made possible and also makes them one of the industry leaders in this realm, given their expertise in graphics processing and graphics cards, as well as their software that goes along with it. And speaking of software, the next stock I'm actually looking to get more into, and I've sort of begun buying with the recent discounts and a massive pullback after the metaverse hype, in which it actually peaked very, very high compared to where it is now, is Unity, which actually develops proprietary software and very cutting-edge software, not only for game development, and it has already been used for lots of, you know, different types of video games, but it also has many different industry applications as well. And yet another metaverse related company that I'm looking closely at, but I haven't started buying just yet because I think the price is still a bit high and is potentially due for a pullback, especially compared to previous prices, is Roblox, which actually makes one of the most popular games in existence right now with over 53 million daily active users. Just think about how many players that is per day. And by market cap, which is taking the stock price times the number of shares in the stock market, it's actually the most valuable US-based gaming company right now as well. And if you check out my previous video, I actually covered this platform in a lot of depth, as well as its free game creation software, which is quite easy to use and actually has enabled even teenagers to make lots of money online. So there's definitely lots of opportunities in terms of the metaverse and just gaming and virtual reality in general, as well as the stock being a fairly hot investment for a lot of people.
It's nice.
And lastly, for some more general investments that I've been getting into with dollar cost averaging and planning to hold for the long run. And by the way, dollar cost averaging is gradually buying shares of a company or perhaps cryptocurrency over time to sort of reduce one-time risk of going all in, and to also potentially buy a bit more if the price dips a bit more, like recently, which is why I'm doing this video and also why I am actually shopping for these stocks and some cryptocurrencies, right? But in general, these stocks actually are, in my portfolio, I consider them to be more safe in that they sort of take into account some of the market risks right now. The biggest one probably being inflation. So for that, you want companies that have mostly positive cash flow, that are profitable, as opposed to smaller, high growth companies that are not yet profitable, but with inflation are going to have a more difficult time growing, as it's going to be more expensive with higher interest rates to borrow money, right? But on the other hand, because I believe, along with people like Kathy Wood and popular YouTuber Meet Kevin, I believe that down the line, be it several months or a year or two, there will be a sort of inflection point, or that inflation will actually start to subside, and we might actually enter into a type of deflation, which means companies will have to sort of lower costs to compete with each other. And this means that companies that have higher profit margins will tend to do better in that case. So it's sort of taking both sides of the spectrum into account and filtering out some of the companies that can sort of deal with both sides that I might want to invest in right now. And Meet Kevin himself actually put together a great list of stocks, in my opinion, that satisfy these criteria, including many stocks that I already own, like Tesla and Nvidia being very large portions of my current portfolio, as well as some FANG stocks like Google that I'm looking to buy a bit more of, Microsoft, and Facebook, which, speaking of which, Facebook is yet another sort of metaverse play, right? With its name changing to Meta as well. And some other stocks include Adobe, Autodesk, Enphase, Etsy, Visa, and also PayPal. And PayPal is another stock that I already own and have been looking to add a little bit more to, given its more massive dip relative to the overall market. And sort of fintech has sort of been beaten down a lot, and that's definitely a place I've been looking to add right now with a dip. And besides that, some more general investments that I've been trying to get into or gradually getting into are an S&P 500 index fund, VOO in particular. And this strategy is more hands-off, or at least this part of my portfolio can be more hands-off, because the S&P 500 index funds sort of manage themselves, because the top 500 companies are constantly sort of, the worst companies can be replaced by the better ones by themselves, right? Without me having to manage that part of my portfolio. So some people actually go, when they're investing and they don't really want to worry about picking stocks as much, and yet still have a very viable sort of market beating or, market following, but you can beat a lot of stock pickers with it, strategy, just buying an S&P 500 index fund. And this could actually free up your time to do other stuff if you prefer, right? So I've definitely been sort of dollar cost averaging into that as well as a smaller part of my portfolio. And in addition to that, I've also, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, been dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin and Ethereum on most dips. So I don't really necessarily buy like every day, but whenever there's like a significant dip, like very recently, right, last weekend, I would sort of buy into Bitcoin and Ethereum at about equal amounts. Although any money I put into cryptocurrencies are still a relatively small part of my overall investment portfolio, right? Because these are more risky in my opinion. And personally, and this is also not financial advice, but I would never advise people to put any more money into cryptocurrencies or other types of riskier assets, like NFTs or whatever, or collectibles, with money that you cannot afford to lose, right? Definitely only put in money that you can afford to lose, in case something happens. Again, this is not financial advice, but personally, I think it's, good advice and advice that I personally follow. And that is pretty much all I wanted to cover in today's video. Remember, you can check out my free YouTube course in the description box below, as well as my premium YouTube course, which contains 2 free video lessons as well, and has a coupon code that will expire very soon. And with that, let me know whether you like these types or these styles of videos in the comment section below, and let me know what you're also interested in investing in, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.